Whilst the Prime Minister has sought to defend his decision not to come to the House last week, it is quite clear that this House should have been recalled. Mr. Speaker, when Sir Walter Scott wrote that in war both sides lose, I'm not quite sure he'd factored into the equation the likes of the Houthis, because they are, of course, the fundamentalists. And unperturbed by the bombing that they have been on the receiving end of from Saudi Arabia for many years, the perceived wisdom would suggest that they are perhaps not just content, but maybe even quite happy to be on the receiving end of American bombs. And it is in that context that that poses an enormous question for all of us in this House as to what comes next. If, as has been suggested through their actions over the course of the last 12 hours or so, the message which we sought to send has not been received, then what do we intend to do? What is the plan? What is the Prime Minister's strategy? Will he come to the dispatch box and, unlike his predecessors in relation to Middle East conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria, lay out when and how far he is willing to go in relation to military action? Because quite clearly, we need to understand his government's strategy in this conflict, because we cannot have an escalation which leads to further regional instability. And of course, whilst we would all agree, quite rightly, that we should not fall for the Houthis' narratives that this is directly related to the conflict in Israel and Gaza, we cannot escape from the fact that a ceasefire in Gaza is essential for that wider regional stability. And finally, Mr. Speaker, whilst the Prime Minister has sought to defend his decision not to come to the House last week, it is quite clear that this House should have been recalled. It is what the public would have expected, and I would urge him to do better in future.